Welcome back to another episode of Expats in Ukraine with your host, me, Corey. Today, my guest, he is an American YouTuber, musician, and comedian. His name is Michael Villena. What's up, Michael?
Yeah, nice to see you, Corey. Thanks for having me on on your podcast.
You happened to be in town when I messaged you, and you were at the Mezhihiria. How was that, man?
It's good.
By the way, what is that for the people that don't know what it is?
Right. So there was Viktor Yanukovych. You know, he had like a huge palace that
is he a friend of yours?
He's not personally a friend of mine, no. But normally, like, I was excited because to see like Zolotý Dosh, usually you have to be on Pornhub.
It's a golden shower.
Yeah, it's a golden shower. You understand this, right?
Yeah.
But he has golden everything out there: toilet, shower. So to see it in real life and not have to be like digital like that, it was cool. But it's a huge territory. It's like 30 minutes away from Kyiv, and we filmed for the Feel Ukraine project. We filmed a video there, and it was awesome. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you're working with Bogdana, right, from Feel Ukraine?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah. Shout out Bogdana.
Yeah.
I look at this camera when I'm.
This is the.
When I do my plugs, I look at like.
Okay. I'll prompt you where to plug. But yeah. But anyways, so let's get right into it. Why are you in Ukraine right now, Michael?
Right now.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of reasons, but I moved to Ukraine 6 years ago, so it's kind of like asking someone who lives in a country, despite war, of course, like why they're there 6 years later. You know, I've built a life here. I'm getting married in 2 months. I do a lot of projects here, so I'd say that's why. I love Ukraine. I live in Ukraine, and that's why I'm here right now. I think it'd be crazy if I left. Despite everything, despite war, because I have like a fiance and I've got a lot of things here. So if I just wasn't in Ukraine right now, then people would be asking, why aren't you in Ukraine right now?
I remember when you first got engaged, we were hanging out and you really liked like the fact that you were engaged, and we had a couple of drinks and you kept telling me, Corey, when are you going to get engaged? When are you going to get married? It's great.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it something I'm proud of? Of course. But do I encourage it?
Yeah.
If you're ready. I like your girlfriend. Like it's still working out, right?
Oh, yeah, of course, man.
Okay, then great. Yeah.
I like her.
Then, yeah, that's why. No, yeah. Yulia's cool. I have a Yulia girlfriend, and yeah, it's just well, I think it's cool because we're the same age. We have a lot in common. You and I.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also have girlfriends both named Yulia.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's common in Ukraine. You can be like in the metro and just yell Yulia, like 30 girls will turn around.
Yeah. But yeah, that is a coincidence. They're both from villages, as I understand.
Oh, yeah. So she's from near Koblyaki.
Cool.
Yeah, it's like Poltava Oblast. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And your girlfriend's from Lutsk, right?
She's from the Volyn. So like
Volyn, yeah.
Lutsk
is the city,
is like the capital. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where she studied, and we live.
Yeah, because I see, I love watching your stories because you give like a real life, I guess, real life Ukraine, like in the village. Yeah, you're like making vareniki. Yeah, you have like jars of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been part of my experience here. Like, it's crazy how it all happened. And so, yeah, to go back to the question, it would be strange if I weren't here because I'm involved in a lot of things. Like, I see that as like everyday life and yeah, but it's cool. It's cool. And I hope, have you been to Lutsk yet?
I've actually never been. I've been to almost every oblast and every capital city of the oblast, but never Lutsk.
Well, I am happy to say that you should come to Lutsk, certainly. And you should come in about 2 months because that's when my wedding is. And I want to invite you.
Oh, you invited me right here.
Right
wow.
On the podcast.
You didn't invite me earlier.
Yeah.
So you invited me here.
I was like, let's wait 5 minutes. Why not?
Okay.
So have you been to a Ukrainian wedding before?
I actually have. I was one in Rivne not too long ago.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah.
We're not far from Rivne. This will be somewhat Ukrainian, but somewhat American. I'm American, so yeah. So there'll be a mixture.
I thought you were
Yeah. I'm a gypsy, so it'll be diverse for sure. And
just watch your purse.
Yeah,
so your girlfriend watch your purse.
But I'll send you like this is off camera. I'll send you like an invite like digitally.
Yeah.
They're doing digital invites these days.
Yeah, everything's digital these days, bro.
I'll send it, but I wanted to invite you. I mean, you've met Yulia.
Yulia's great. Yeah. We went to your last comedy show. So speaking of comedy,
yeah.
Michael, it's super it's very interesting to say the least. You do comedy, stand-up comedy, but in Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me. And you're actually quite successful at it. I went to one of your shows with my Julia, and yeah, you were quite, I don't know, you have like a name for yourself here.
Yeah, thank you for coming to the show, and thank you for saying that. Like, it was really cool to see you there. Like, you sat through the filming. It was on Suspilno, like 2.5, 3 hours worth, and like it's hard, like I've sat through it all. And I don't understand everyone's jokes always in Ukrainian, but yeah. So like I do comedy. Like that was actually the first job I ever wanted. Like it's crazy as a child. I remember, like I'll date myself here, but like hearing my dad like watch maybe a VHS of Eddie Murphy, his stand-up comedy, and him laughing so hard, I got so pumped, and I understood like, man, I want to make my dad laugh that hard. And I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. I was like 5 years old. And that was a moment that my parents understood that I would grow up and be poor because like stand-up comedy, like so I like revisit it later in life. Like I didn't study. You can't study comedy in university.
You're just born with it, right?
Yeah, I did things. I found my way back to it. I do it in Ukrainian, but it's because like about YouTube and music in Ukrainian. Like I do most everything I do here is in the Ukrainian language. Like since like 2020 when I moved here, which is again probably why a lot of my things are not popular because like language. Like I moved from Kyiv to Lviv in 2021 because like most of my friends, like I was learning a language that I wasn't hearing a lot. Like it was mostly like Russian or English.
Yeah.
And so I was investing a lot of time learning a language, and I heard a lot like, okay, go to Lviv or like Lutsk somewhere, and you can use it more. And so that's why I wound up there. But I do comedy. I do it both in English. I can do some comedy in German. The German sense of humor is like, because I speak German, it's different.
Oh, wow.
And then in Ukraine,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I moved here from Vienna. So
Vienna. Okay, right on. They speak German there.
Yeah.
My German friends said they don't.
Yeah.
I got jokes too, Michael.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do.
Yeah, but okay, so you come to Ukraine, you're doing comedy in Ukrainian. What is the different humor like between, differences between the US type of humor and Ukrainian type of humor?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think there's a lot drier humor here, but I think with comedy, with stand-up comedies particularly, there's a big boom like post full-scale invasion. So like 2022, 2023, like a big boom here in Ukraine with comedy. And that happened like maybe in America during COVID, about 2020. There was big booms with YouTube. We discovered more comedy. I think we're about the same age. So for me, it was like Dane Cook and Kevin Hart were super popular when I was in high school, and some of these comedians, and it just, the accessibility made it more popular. And then COVID, a lot of comedians like really dialed in America, and the comedy scene here was growing. And I feel like post full scale invasion, like so many talented people like even joined the comedy scene because they had like a view, they had thoughts, they had opinions to express, and it's such a good platform to do it. Such a good medium is through humor, and such a good way of like, it's medicinal. It's a good way of uniting people. So I think it got especially popular here, like after the full scale invasion. Of course, it's been popular before, but it was maybe mixed language. So after like 2022, a lot of Ukrainian language comedians like came together and from different fields, like some are like political, a lot of political jokes here, and like a lot of the comedians that I watch in English, they're not really political. I mean, now we'll take jabs at like our situation there, but like if you look at a lot of popular, if I said Eddie Murphy, Dane Cook, Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, it wasn't super political till about the last, like, since Trump, basically, where it gives you a lot of it gives you a lot to work with, source material to joke about. But here, I would say a big difference is that a lot of comedy here is like built around dry humor and political and dark humor as well. And I think it's great, and it fits this current situation, but just like it also fits like my neighbor who's Ukrainian and Lutz. Like the things that we talk about and the things we joke about might be more like not as like American humor, which could be more like in your like it's slang. I don't know, super cultural, super about, we can bring about racism. We can laugh about a lot of things because in America, we're so diverse.
Like, is there like a specific joke that you knew would kill in the US, but here it just fell flat?
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things about like however many genders or identifications we have
Oh,
in
okay,
America,
okay.
like because that's like super
Yeah, and
cultural,
the audience
political.
like, there's only two.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
More genders.
So, and that was cool for me because it's cool to understand this as a foreigner living in a country,
Yeah.
like what lands and not, like what people like, is it relative to them or not? Like we talked about Yanukovych, he's a funny person to joke about because like his history, and you do great about it because like your videos are like both hilarious, but also like it shows that you understand Ukrainian culture, and I think that that is like a big source of comedy, whatever country you're in. And with American culture, like we're relatively new, right? So we
Yeah.
like define our culture like
burgers, hot dogs,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola, Michael Jackson.
yeah, these things, yeah. And here there's so many like centuries of I mean, we could always joke about like Russian imperialism, of course, and it failing, and like just certain personalities, political figures. And I do think comedians here gravitate to that a lot,
Yeah.
rightfully so, because I think it's cool that comedians have a voice and they can like, you can make people laugh and you can educate them as well. Like it,
Yeah.
or you could have dumb humor, and this also like is very popular everywhere, and some people prefer that. But like you could, here I like to say a joke that I always start out with the Ukrainians. Like I'm super nice to Ukrainian comedians. A lot of them are my friends, and I'm really nice to them because like you really never know which one of them is going to be the next president. So, like as a foreigner, like I want to make sure my ties are good with all the like.
So for the people at home that don't get the joke, Zelensky was a comedian.
He started
before he became president.
Yeah.
But I know. So right now in Ukraine, there's a very serious situation. I don't know if you heard this. There's a war going on.
There's a war.
Yeah. So when it comes to comedy, it's good to make people laugh. But is there like a joke that you can't tell now, or is there some type of humor that is not appropriate?
Some taboo.
Like,
I think in general, like, I mean, honestly, real hard comedians like think that there should not be any topic on taboo, you know, because if you can make people laugh, because everyone's gonna like, it's been 3 years of just Russian terror, you know, but we've thankfully can find like sometimes to laugh at ourselves, at other things. And if you can do that, if you're talented enough to even make any joke about the situation and get people to laugh, which some of my friends that are so super talented can, then kudos to you. Like, but it's very dangerous to play with. And I think in general, you don't joke about like military, people who serve in war, but you know, we've joked about death, which, you know, it's just a telltale, everyone dies. So something that could be relative. But yeah, there's definitely topics that people should maybe steer away from. But I think a challenge as a comedian is being brave enough to think, if you have something to say that is funny, that you believe is funny, then go for it. But I don't dabble in those waters too deeply, because like I don't need to. It's not really my humor. I stick with a lot of things that are relative to me and my story and my audience, and like fighting in war is not necessarily.
Do you know who Vova Shumko is?
Yeah.
So he's so I got introduced to him through Reese. Yeah, he's Reese's friend. And so I remember I went to one of his shows, and he does like stand-up comedy, but mostly he does like improv type of comedy. So I went to this one event, and it was him and Ivan Lul. I forgot his last name. Lula.
I don't know.
But anyway, so Ivan L. Anyways, so they're doing improv, and they're asking the audience name a city and, you know, a situation.
Yeah.
And then someone yells like Kiev, Tutsuka, and then they're like, no, we're not doing that next. Like, so name another. Yeah, because it's
sensitive.
Yeah, it's a very sensitive topic, you know.
Yeah,
especially here.
Yeah, it is, and it's something that we can't relate to. I mean, you've been asked for your documents, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I get looked at like barely, and I get like, and I joke
We're not
about
gonna give the Zigana a rifle.
Yeah, like they're like, we don't want to even ask for his documents. Yeah, they ask if I'm like North Korean. They don't ask if I'm like what I'm doing.
They made it this far, he's lost.
Yeah, like, but it is like, to be honest, like I've been in many places where Titsika will come in and they'll ask for everyone's documents and not even ask mine, which is like, you know, like that just shows like how far away I am from having to worry about such topics.
Yeah.
Even with my wedding, I have a lot of friends, guy friends from different cities, and I understand, like I invite them, but I say like, you know, I understand if you don't want to travel because Titsika, like I get it. It's nothing personal.
Yeah.
It's something that we won't understand, but I totally think that you can joke about the Titsika topic, even as a foreigner. But you just be sensible to who your audience is really. And we've been in situations where Titsika, I opened for Anton Timoshenko. He's outstanding comedian, I think the best in Ukraine.
Oh yeah, you opened for him in Texas,
in
actually, right?
Texas and then in Lutsk.
Oh.
And then even at his shows around here, he's sold out Sport.
Yeah, so Anton Timoshenko, he's a very popular Ukrainian comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super popular. He got to perform in America. He did a tour there. He tours Europe, tours around Ukraine. And even in a lot of his shows, Titsika will be at the door accepting tickets. Not accepting tickets, but checking for people.
Yeah.
And all the concerts, at least like the 2 times I opened for him, it's like blahodini, so charity. Like the money's through Serhiy Pratula's foundation. Like it's donated.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like a super buzzkill to check people there.
Yeah.
And I think he makes jokes about it. He's that skilled. Like he can really joke about it. And I remember in Lutsk, I opened for him. Then I wanted to watch him. So I went front row and watched him perform. And he made comments about Titsika. And that behind me was the guy that worked for Titsika.
Wow.
And they had a banter about it. Like, cause the guy's there to laugh. He bought a ticket on his day off and he joked about it back. And it's just like a reality, just like war, everyday war. And so it's a reality that a lot of people.
Well, just to give some context to the viewers, Titsika, it's like conscription police.
Yeah. So they will mobilize men of age, and there's a lot of videos of them.
But the thing is, so I remember I went to this New Year's. It was at Palazzo Ukraina.
Yeah.
And it was this So it's like this New Year's last concert of the year.
Yeah.
And so they had like all like the top artists of the year. The Jamala was there. Jerry Hale was there. Alona was there. So basically all the top musicians of Ukraine of that year. And during the middle of it, they had auctions where they asked like the fans. We have this thing signed by this person who wants to donate, and they were raising thousands of dollars. And the same thing, I went to an Otorvald. You know Otorvald?
No.
It's like this hard, like heavy, like not heavy metal, but metal band here. And they were actually representing Ukrainian Eurovision like 2 or 3 years ago. Anyways, so in the middle of that, they had another auction. Dantes?
Yeah,
so Dantes was there, as well as Durnev. Yeah, you know him, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, they were there and they auctioned off a couple items that Otorvald band they signed. And one guy, they were having like a bidding war in the audience because everyone's like been drinking and having a good time. And they ended up raising like for these 2 or 3 items, like $5,000-8,000. Yeah. And they're obviously it's going to the military in Ukraine. So I feel like in the end, it's like a good thing, that people are coming together.
And that was like that interaction I was saying with Timoshenko and Titsika. That was during the auction because they raised like several $1,000s. Like that, it's been a pleasure of mine to get to perform in such scenarios. But yeah, like if some of the men there like can't see the concert because of it being regulated, I don't know so deeply because like Titsika is also part of like the military and they have their job. So it's like really tricky from all angles. But I think of those charity concerts that can raise a lot of money. Like it sucked that some people get turned away. And it was a good interaction that this guy was bantering with the comedian, and we raised a lot of money that night, and we could laugh about the situation.
Yeah, and I want to ask about, what is the reception you've received? Being an American comedian doing your comedy in Ukrainian, I can imagine it went pretty well because this is more or less how you met your fiance. Yeah. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. A lot of things that I do this is the only first podcast I've done here in English. Like I have my own podcast, it's Ukrainian podcast. It's called Krapla Naknenya. Plug it, Krapla Naknenya, which I do that, I do music, I do comedy, all in Ukrainian, but a lot of that was not because right now it's popular. I mean, I started doing it when Ukrainian language wasn't popular, and that's why it sucked for me. A lot my music album I released 2020 was in Ukrainian, and it wasn't as popular as had I released it probably after full-scale invasion when a lot of people converted to speaking. But I did it whenever you learn a language, you want to during COVID is when I started learning Ukrainian, and that's when I wrote music in Ukrainian. I would collect these perabachenya from Silpo, these fortunes that they have on the receipts. I wrote a song about using those. I would collect 20 of them, and just to build vocabulary. I mean, it was COVID; you were just bored, super bored, and so for me, it was a way of expressing myself, but learning a language and deeper. And once you get deeper into that and you understand like I can speak this language, like then maybe like for me, I didn't want to like it. Joking in English was cool, but it was like I wouldn't say too easy for me. It was just like I wanted to do two birds with one stone. I'd want to tell jokes, but in Ukrainian about like my life or Ukrainian culture. And so that was like attractive to me as a creator.
Yeah.
So I stuck with that. And I mean, I've been doing it since before full scale invasion. So it wasn't like oh, this is gonna be popular, let's do it now. It was like there's videos of me like with my YouTube channel like whenever it wasn't popular. And the reception has always been, like I said, like here in Kyiv, it wasn't as comfortable for me. Like I do street interview videos for my YouTube channel as well. And like some people just wouldn't want to speak. I'd approach them looking like a gypsy, wanting to speak Ukrainian. And it just wasn't as cool. And then I do street music in Lviv and in Lutsk, and the reception was like back in 2021 was huge. Like people would like video and like be very impressed of someone who wanted to learn Ukrainian language and culture. Now it's like more common, which is great. But back then it wasn't. I had to find my audience as a creator.
Yeah.
And so that was the reception was like slower, but like I knew I had an audience, and I would share videos, and they really loved like my jokes. They'd love my music, my street interviews, and anything. And they appreciate it because the channel that we communicate with each other, it was Ukrainian. Like almost all my videos on YouTube are Ukrainian language. So I think there's a lot of people that I wouldn't have been able to resonate with had I like spoken English, certainly spoken Russian. So I think the reception was slower but very warm.
Yeah.
And I got to practice my language learning all throughout the whole duration of that up until today.
I mean, like I told you before, I guess it was good because this is in some way this is how you met your fiance. And yeah, you met her because she was a fan of yours, right?
Yeah, but that was actually through Feel Ukraine and English.
Oh, really?
Language.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
She had no idea that
You're a comedian. Okay.
Yeah, like
if she did, she probably would go out with you, right?
Yeah. She was like, "Wow, here's a sugar daddy."
Yeah.
No, she started following me after one of the Feel Ukraine videos, which we both worked on this project. It's in English, and I noticed she was from Lutsk, and I messaged her, but in Ukrainian. I mean, this was like
Rico Suave.
Yeah, and she was like confused at what language because she studied English and German philology, so we could speak German, English, and Ukrainian together. And she didn't know what language to speak to me in, and I think it became more interesting for her that she could speak to me in Ukrainian. But she saw me like as kind of like another influencer promoter in English, like people that did this like during wartime. Because she didn't get to see my content from before.
Yeah.
Maybe then when she saw it, I was worried she would think I'm some like psycho, like who would be making this content like before it was super popular. But she's the kind of person and her family as well that like really appreciated this. And I think that's how we knew we found like our person. But I would still say like I'm not super popular. I think when I first met you like over a year ago, we had similar following. And I think you're like 5 times more than me, and I think it's a lot is like the audience that you kind of like can draw. And I'm very like kind of stubborn, I would say, with like I just want to if I do appearances, I want to do it in Ukrainian kind of. And so I don't know, I don't think it's like how I found my fiance, definitely not, but like how we maybe like we found a lot in common because of language and culture shared thereafter.
Not totally. Yeah, I can understand more or less, like probably 60 something % Ukrainian when people speak.
Yeah.
And my speaking is like very bad. Unfortunately, I learned Russian before.
Yeah.
So I'm not fluent in Russian by any means, but I can, speak more comfortably and understand like a bit better, like in Russian. I wish I would have taken the time to learn Ukrainian. I'm learning it now.
Yeah, that's cool.
I really respect foreign people, especially, American people that speak Ukrainian, because everyone here, not everyone, but if you go to any country, the fallback language is English.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't speak their language, you speak English, more or less, someone will probably understand you.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm so confused, where I talk to maybe my friends and they go, "Oh, my parents are in Italy." And I go, "Oh, do they speak English?" They're like, "No." Like, how do they do anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like you've traveled a lot, right? I've also traveled a lot. I lived in Germany. So in Germany I'm impressed, like you said, when any American can speak any foreign language because it's cool.
Yeah.
When I moved to Germany, that was my first time like really having to learn a language to live, to function, to make friends, to
Well, people in
express
Austria, they
myself.
speak English quite well, right?
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in Germany, so at first I in Austria, but first I moved to Berlin, which most
Mm-hmm.
people speak English,
Mm-hmm.
and then I moved with my girlfriend at the time to Munich, and that was more German speaking. And one could get by, but like you're still limited. Like you're limited in many ways if you just stick with English. Although it's the comfort of it being the universal language. Like I had many job interviews that I couldn't like successfully do because I couldn't speak German. So that like really opened my eyes to like, oh, I need to learn language to function. A lot of times, like here in Ukraine, I think it's amazing when foreigners speak Ukrainian, but I still make a lot of mistakes. Like I'm not fluent. And I have some American friends that like will make fun of me
Mm-hmm.
even and my level's like pretty decent.
Yeah.
But then I understand like, oh, like they're in that high of like it's their first foreign language to learn. Like
Yeah.
not to brag about myself, but like a lot of polyglots are learn because it's something to brag about. But like
Yeah.
I think language is a channel to communicate. So like sign language, body language, whatever you need to like get
Mhm.
your message to someone. And so that's why I learned language. And I'm never snobby to someone like you're learning, you're a little like slower, but I really appreciate that you're learning and it's
Mhm.
like and you're going through it because it's something us Americans take for granted, of course,
Yeah,
because we
that's
have
true.
English, but to make the step to even try is like impressive. I don't like when people like shame people. First, like they'll shame like foreigners, of course, but like some Ukrainians will even shame like Ukrainians because like a lot of Ukrainians
Mhm.
also can't speak Ukrainian. And I think a lot that made me like popular is just kind of exemplifying me, like using me as an example. But
Yeah.
and I played into that some, like I would be on like TV interviews, but it also made me uncomfortable because I didn't want to like it's not my business to tell someone like what language to speak.
Yeah.
But I actively moved from Kyiv to Lviv in 2021 because I knew the language I'm learning was more used there in like the western part of Ukraine. So and I'd studied it there and that's how I learned. And so it's like it's a channel thing of
No, it sounds like
communication.
you're very well invested in Ukraine, and you basically, your future is in Ukraine, right?
Mhm.
I mean, you're gonna get married to a Ukrainian woman, girl. Yeah, woman makes it sound like she's like old, like 50 years old.
Unfortunately, she's
Yeah,
not.
okay, Ukrainian girl, and yeah, she lives in Lutsk. Family is still there around the area. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask. So this is your home. There's a war going on. How has it affected you? What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, it's affected me a lot. Just like most Ukrainians, like kind of through my experience, like we're all victims in a way of living here, and it sucks. Like just every little part. Like I get the luxury of being able to leave the country, visit my family in America, but that process changed. Like it now involves like a long ride. But thankfully, I can even leave. You know, I visit Kiev a lot for work projects, so here there's a little more activity. In Lutsk and Lviv, it's a little quieter, but your mental health is different, your physical health changes because of this. I would say that that has affected it a lot for me, and my friends and my family and the people I love here in Ukraine. So I'm like volunteer as much as possible. I bring supplies. I would the first year I had a volunteer visa. I still have a volunteer visa,
Mhm.
and I would bring a lot of supplies over, and I would do anything. Now it's more on the way of like raising money, so like any charity concerts I can do,
Mhm.
which is cool to be able to use talent as well. But it's like it was just awful,
Mhm.
and not something that I projected. And it's an interesting thing about that topic because like I was really hesitant to come on Expats with Ukraine this podcast because like I don't know the data. I don't watch it as much, but I did my research, and I feel like a lot of the guests like came during war,
Yeah.
and they do amazing things. And like I'm like, wow. I even told you like on messages like I think that your audience like attracts to like these kind of people, and I'm a comedian. Like, but I've been living here, and like I do something different like with culture and language, and so I didn't like identify as these people that came because for me, like if another country that I support and really respect was at war, I don't think I would move there actively. Like, so I really feel like just like many Ukrainians, like this was my home, is my home, and we're victims to Russia's terrorism, and like,
Mhm.
but I'm not gonna leave either. So I think that affected me a lot. Like, I'm not the kind of person to go to a place because of war and like be attracted to that and do that. I think a lot of my career here maybe got popular because of what I was doing through
Mhm.
that. I think like maybe you experienced that like yeah, probably this podcast like awesome
Mhm.
production like I think like trying to do this 5-6 years ago, like many people would be like, we're not really that interested in
Yeah.
expats in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So I would think just like many like locals, other than like my citizenship, so I can't speak to like Titsika and having to go serve, like I'm affected both emotionally, mentally, and physically as well.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for the end of the war, and like the most sincere, because like you did say, and I want to believe that this is going to be my home. But I, as American, to be honest, and now getting married and wanting someday to build a family, I don't ignore I have an American passport, and I could move back so closer to my brothers in Texas and my family, and what might be peace, but I haven't lived in America for like 10 years. It's not my first choice, but I don't like forget about that, and so I live here. I love my life here. I loved it before full scale invasion, of course, more. But it's
So if Russia escalates and Ukraine like loses more land, then you're saying you would probably have to move from your home now that you built a life with your wife and maybe family. So basically, Russia would ruin your life. If
I'd say they already have, but
Yeah.
maybe
Would just uproot
like
your life. Yeah.
because my partner is Ukrainian and she's like, and I love this about her, like doesn't want to move, like we have equal votes in this, or maybe she has a little more. She's like 51%. So like
she's more equal than you.
yeah, I would concede. Yeah, but like honestly, like it's a crazy thought. Like I'm getting married. I'm gonna have Ukrainian American kids someday, and like if I could avoid them to have like this childhood that many unfortunately kids have right now, with these attacks daily, then what kind of parent am I? Because there's the Ukrainian patriot that you and I both like exemplify as foreigners. Like we stand for a lot here, our solidarity, and people admire that. But also like my family, my kids' grandparents ask myself like, so you want to like risk them growing up there? And this is if it were to escalate more, because I often ask myself this question. I would hate to uproot and
How does
move.
your family feel about you living here then and getting engaged to a girl here in Ukraine?
Yeah, they're supportive. They're very supportive. It's amazing. They were at my performance in Texas with Timoshenko. When how there's a backstory with me, like in Munich, I met a Ukrainian when I was living in Munich 7-8 years ago. A guy came up to me, two Ukrainians, asked for a cigarette. I noticed he didn't smoke the cigarette, so he just wanted like a free English lesson because we were just speaking English.
Yeah.
He gave me a hryvnia that I still have, hryvnia that I have still today,
Well.
and he told me about Ukraine. He said like Kyiv and Odessa, all these places are cool, but he's from Lutsk, and he's like, maybe visit some other places. And I took his advice on that later in life. But we're really connected because that like grandma that I lived with in Lutsk is his mom.
Oh.
Yeah, and my parents also like accepted him as a refugee, and he lived with my family for like a year. My parents from afar have supported Ukraine a lot, and I think a lot of that is because I live here. Like they would support it regardless, but like they're very tied because their son lives here. They had a Ukrainian live with them for over a year. They know my fiance Yulia, like they understand that this is like how my life turned out, and they're very invested as well.
Because there's like a shift going on in the US, whereas they're getting less supportive of Ukraine, and especially one party more than the other. The party is the Republican Party. Texas, by recent history, is more rights-leaning.
Yeah.
So how does this conflict with a lot of people's beliefs in Texas, especially your friends or family back home? They're very supportive of Ukraine, your family.
Yeah.
So I can imagine they support Ukraine. They probably vote Democrats, maybe,
Right.
But do you have friends back home that saying, "Why are you here? You're crazy.
Yeah.
Ukraine's gonna lose."
Yeah, coming from Texas, like majority of my people I grew up with, I don't know if we can call it friends, but people from my childhood, they still like follow me and like support what I do, but they are Republican Trump supporters. They get fake news. Like I have my best friend from childhood will often send me articles about Zelensky like blowing money this way, or like all this money that they've given, and it's really not factual. But like, and I'm his best friend from childhood. Like he supports me. He like wishes he could even come to my wedding, like super. But he's just so affected by like wrong information and news and his position in his political party as well. So it's crazy how powerful that is. but yeah, you do see a shift, and you see this like kind of justification for trying to end the war as soon as possible, like ceasefire, like negotiate with Russia. And I can imagine what side you're on. Like I'm on edge. So like when we talk about like a ceasefire, when we talk about like Trump putting an end to war,
Mhm.
I still think like I want to have kids here someday. I think like a bunch of that. Russia's like a vet. Trump will die someday, thankfully.
Really?
That's bad to say.
Yeah.
Putin will die someday, thankfully. Like these leaders will die someday, thankfully. But like this empire ideology of Russia, like that won't die, right? So they'll want more, you know. So unless there's like an end with like secure guarantees, which there was security guarantees from the Budapest Memorandum, like there's really not a lot of guarantees. So this about mineral rights and there's a lot. This is very temporary, and it's like a
Yeah.
band-aid that you're putting on blood that's
Well,
gonna
Ukraine has been betrayed so many times, whether it's, the Western countries, the Budapest Memorandum,
Yeah.
where they give up their nukes for protection, but they're not protected. Whether it's like the Minsk, ceasefires.
Yeah.
Whether it's, Russia promising they're not going to invade again, and they literally invade like the next week.
Yeah.
And they went on TV saying, we're not going to invade. You guys are crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no trust there.
Right,
They
and
need
we
like some
understand
strong
that.
guarantees. And what's better than a strong guarantee is just get Russia the hell off our land.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And we understand that. But I hear this rhetoric repeated from my childhood friends, not my family, but like people I know that I even consider friends in America, where it's like, well, people are dying, like war needs to end. It's like that repeated rhetoric,
Yeah.
but it's like, this is just like, I mean, I get it. If you live in Texas, it's like very far away from here. And you're just thinking like, okay, Trump can put an end to it. They need to make an agreement. They negotiate all this, but it's not that. It's like, as we know, way deeper. And like
Yeah.
without guarantees, that is why I like pretty openly say to my partner, to my friends and family, like without security guarantees, I can't say I'm going to stay here the rest of my life. Like if I have children and I could leave, because like Russia, like I just can predict the behavior. Like we know what
Mhm.
could happen. And so I can't give like, like I have an American passport. I can't like just say like I will raise my family here till the end, but I want a situation just like all Ukrainians where we don't have to worry about that in the future. Then I would say like, yeah, there's no action that Russia could do that would like get me to like change and have to move myself and my family.
Yeah. So are you optimistic about the future of Ukraine then?
I would say, oh, I think optimism, like I think my optimism, like my American optimism, has like changed a lot. Where it's like realistic is at best, and pessimistic could be my view. But I'm really realistic, and I'm like just for safety and just having gone through everything as well. Only for me, I've only lived here for 5.5 years, so I couldn't imagine from 2014, like before centuries. If I had experienced that or been closer to it, then I don't think I could be optimistic at all. But for me, I've been here for 6 years, and maybe even what I say is optimistic about like maybe some negotiation could happen, and like these leaders die. I don't know. Like maybe Russia won't, like as proven, like they don't even respect the negotiation. So
Yeah.
I think even me thinking a negotiation could happen, and like there could be talks to cease fire and war temporarily, could even be optimistic. Depends on who you ask. So I would say I like to believe that, but I'm like careful. So I don't want to live in pessimism, but reality is what I want to live in, and we know what happens realistically every day here. And
Because I don't think there will ever be there'll never be a lasting ceasefire or peace unless Russia is gone, because the goals that Russia has don't match with
Yeah.
what Ukraine is willing to compromise.
right.
Russia wants all of Ukraine to just be submissive to them, and they want like a puppet government similar to Belarus.
Mhm.
So unless they get that, then they're not going to agree to any security guarantees, like having, UN troops monitoring the situation,
Yeah.
to have, Ukraine build a military while there's a ceasefire. They don't want any of that because this is not aligned with their goals. Their goals, they want all of Ukraine.
Right.
So in order to get all of Ukraine, we'll have a ceasefire, but then, you can't build your military, but we can. You can't get security guarantees, but we're going to have like, people from North Korea defend our borders.
Mhm.
So it's not compatible, and there will never be an agreement. And this is why Russia just needs to leave, or this thing will go on indefinitely.
Yeah, as it seemingly has,
Yeah.
kind of. And I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So if people want peace, and if people want the killings, the deaths to end, they need to look at Russia and tell them to stop and figure out, oh, like the best way to help Ukraine push them back to get them off their land, because this is the only way there will be peace.
Yeah,
the only way the deaths will stop.
I agree, and it's even crazy that now, like, we're proud, like Americans, like to have Putin at the table is like a big win, because it's like it's not that like there, and then that he has these phone calls and he's willing to negotiate. It's like they really would need to leave. Like this is really not enough. So I think maybe to go back to your question, I am optimistic because I've shifted a little bit where it's like, okay, they're talking, you know, like this is something, but like they're talking with a concrete wall between them. You know what I mean? Like, just like you said, like when their initiative with their goals are just far different between Russia, Ukraine, but also America, who maybe is that wall or whatever, like trying to be the middle channel. When all those goals are not aligned and it's not even aligned with sovereignty in general or justice, then that's where it really gets tricky. And so I think, yeah, it's for us to feel some sort of security. It really involves them leaving like permanently with agreements. But I mean, that's really hard to do. And I don't want to bring pessimism into it, but like, I think for all of us that are really like on the ground here and understand, like, that's like so hard, because like the neighbors to the east are just crazy. So like, how could that come? Like, I like to be like political, negotiate, diplomatic, but like, I mean, like, we respect ourselves. Ukrainians respect themselves here as well. They should, and their land. Russia doesn't respect it at all. And like it's, I don't understand how that's going to happen, especially so soon.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with everything you said. But yeah, we reached our time. Is there anything that you want to discuss that we haven't discussed, or?
No, I like what we discussed. I mean, it's an ongoing thing, and it's like, we'll remember the moment of history that we're at right now. I think it's cool that, what you did here, and like,
thanks, man.
Yeah, if we had more time, this flew by. I would, I always wanted to talk more about you because you're a super interesting guy. But the exclusivity, we get to do that off camera now. We'll probably go have a beer.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, but like, you're a tremendous host, and like good work for like what you did with with this project, and much respect.
Yeah, but I want to introduce you to my friend Benya as well. Do you know Benya? Ben Stewart?
Yeah, you told me about him.
Yeah, I want to introduce you to him as well. Yeah, so he's a musician, and he fundraises a lot of money through his music.
Yeah.
And he hosts like a lot of events like here in Ukraine.
I think he was performing in Lviv. I was at a bar next door, and I saw like he had a performance there. And
I'll try to invite him out tonight then.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, if you want to plug your social media or maybe your podcast or any organization that you mentioned, feel free to look in that camera and plug away.
Awesome. So, yeah, I'm O Mikhailo on YouTube, on Instagram. I work right now. I have a podcast called Krapla Naknenya on YouTube. Right now, I'm preparing for a tour, stand-up tour. There'll be a lot of Blachodiny Concerti in the future, and a new music single, Ukrainian language, that'll be released in summer. And those are what I do. That's what I do, and I appreciate for being here.
Awesome. So I'll sign out right now. So thanks again for watching this episode of Expats in Ukraine with your host, me, Corey. If you like this episode, give it a thumbs up. If you want to chat with Michael and ask him where he got this NBA sweater from, comment down below. You'll read the comments, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Michael's going to read the comments. And if you want to see more of these episodes, subscribe to the channel. But thanks so much, Mikhailo, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like to shake the hand of the guests over here. Yeah. Let's shake hands, bro.
Thank you, bro.